I'd like to read an email that somebody sent me last week to get your feedback on the question that I was asked during it. I'm going to read it out to you now. This is from Robert. Colin, love your TikTok channel and your YouTube channel as well. You should do more on it. Got a Star Trek question for you. If a starship is travelling at warp, and let's say someone gets thrown out an outside hatch or access door, what happens to them precisely? I'm presuming they continue to drift along at warp speed, since they're still inside the warp field generated by the coils of the warp engines. But since they'd have a tiny bit of momentum from getting booted out the door, they'd probably drift to the edge of the warp field, and that's what I'm curious about next. Let's say they're floating feet first. Would they be torn into pieces, length of spaghetti, as their feet, their legs, their pelvis, their torso, then head drifted out of the warp field? Just curious. And a quick follow-up. Perhaps when the soles of their feet float outside the warp field, they might function as an anchor. Their feet drop out of warp a bazillionth of a nanosecond before the rest of their body does. Because the soles of their feet dropped out of warp, snatching the rest of them out of warp as well. Imagine tying one end of a rope to your foot and then the other end to a large tree, then drive off at 100 kilometers per second. Yoink. The amount of force in G's their deceleration from warp would cause might be an interesting hypothetical question for some smart people to calculate. Maybe your TikTok followers might know. This is an interesting question. Thank you, Robert. What happens if you get thrown out of a starship at warp? So there's two examples of this. The first one is an episode of Enterprise where Trip has to transfer from the Enterprise to another starship while at warp. So essentially what Trip does is tie a rope from the top of the Enterprise to the other ship and just crawls down the rope, and he's perfectly fine. So within a warp field, anything traveling within that warp field is perfectly fine. In Star Trek Into Darkness, we see that people who are blown out of the hull are thrown out of warp and probably spaghettified. I would think that it's the same sort of thing that happens to you if you reach the event horizon of a black hole. So I think you're probably completely spot on in your spaghettification thing. Like every single atom in your body that was traveling at warp is no longer traveling at warp. But this is interesting because in a black hole, when you hit the event horizon, the gravitational effect is so strong that every single atom in your body is just spaghettified. But if you just drop out of a warp bubble, you'd still be traveling. That's an interesting question, actually. Like, it's not like you're falling into a huge gravity well if you fall out of a warp bubble, right? You're just transitioning from folded space or subspace into normal space. So I wonder, is there a spaghettification that happens there? I'm going to throw that out to astrophysicists to see if they have an answer for that. What would happen if a body traveling within a warp field suddenly gets thrown out of the warp field? Is it the same as a black hole, or would they survive? Anyway, thanks, Robert. If you want to email me weird things, please do. My email address is earth2weldon@gmail.com. Have at it. Yeah.